according to a report by the Wall Street Journal. FTX is moving ahead with plans to restart its international exchange. CEO John J. Ray III is quoted in the article saying that the company has, quote, begun the process of soliciting interested parties to the reboot of the FTX.com exchange. Sources say the company has already had early talks with investors about different structures, including possibly a joint venture. Adam, I'm going to kick this one off to you. Seems like FTX 2.0 could be on the horizon. What do you make of this?
Well, I think it makes sense just from the perspective of if you were going to try to get value out of this brand, then this would be the way to do it. FTX, although it had a pretty abrupt fall from grace, really was a top exchange for a good amount of time, not necessarily for folks in the US. We weren't really allowed to use it, much to my chagrin at the time. But in hindsight, that turned out to be pretty all right. The reality, though, is that if they can reboot it, then there probably is substantial brand value to be had there. And that could wind up being a better way to recover, much of kind of the losses that appear to have been incurred here for folks who have funds trapped in there. It could also work out well for the company as well, because it likely would mean that not just kind of beyond the restarting, that there would be some type of equity allocation that would actually go to people who are owed money by the exchange. And so that could then allow the company to keep kind of more liquid capital and go from being something that just gets liquidated, down to nothing, to pay off what it can, to instead continuing as a going concern, which would be better for some of the parties who are involved here. So I think that it makes sense. I think ultimately it'll be hard to pull off. There's a lot of challenges around trying to reboot this type of brand in this type of situation, but it makes sense that they would try. Zach?
Yeah, a lot of people who used FTX really liked the interface, right? They liked the UX, they liked the functionality. People were fans of it. Whatever was going on behind the scenes wasn't evident to them. The massive dumpster fire that apparently was FTX and Alameda wasn't apparent to a lot of users who really sang the praises of the trading interface at FTX. So the idea that they would kind of roll out that technology certainly makes sense. I think it shows some forward thinking by John J. Ray III, JJ Ray out here launching things despite maybe some initial skepticism that this would ever come to pass. I know we expressed a lot of that skepticism on this show previously. So if this ends up being the case, I mean, yeah, hats off to him for trying to get money back into the system and pay out people who were harmed by what appears to be, or what is alleged to be, a pretty massive fraud. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think the thing that I'm most interested in is which backers back FTX 2.0, which venture funds sign up, sign their name on the line, put their name next to the FTX brand and say, you know what, we're doing it. We're going all in. There was some fans of this product in the past, and we think we can breathe some life into it in a way that makes sense. That to me is actually going to be the interesting thing. No names were mentioned in the piece, but reportedly at least, JJ Ray is making the rounds and saying, who wants to back this thing? I'm very curious to see who that ends up being. Jen?
Yeah, the piece said that parties that want to be involved must submit indication interest by the end of this week. So if you're watching and you want to be a part of this, you have until Friday. And the piece also said that Figure is allegedly interested in helping FTX restart. You'll remember that they bid on the rights to Celsius, but lost to the consortium that won that bid. So interesting. I am also very curious to see who could get behind this, but it sounds like it's probably, Adam, to your point, one of the better ways to get funds back into the hands of customers, to give customers some kind of something that can make up for what's happened over the past year with FTX. I see Will Foxley has joined us. Will, what are your thoughts on the possibility of FTX 2.0? And welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know what you guys just said, so I might just be repeating it, but that's okay. I'm going to still say it with enthusiasm. I think they should relaunch FTX 2.0. I hope they do go along with this. Why? Because there's a lot of creditors involved with this, and maybe everyone who's involved here can get some money back. We've seen all the other stories of failed exchanges, right? People get like 10 cents back on the dollar, 14 cents back on the dollar. Well, what if there's a world where FTX is able to reboot itself and pay back everyone the full amount of their money in USD terms? That's a pretty fantastic ending, though a very unlikely one. I know there's a lot of people on crypto Twitter who are pushing for FTX 2.0. They're like putting it in their bios. They're putting in like their handles saying like, we want this to occur. It's typically people who obviously lost a lot of money and are well down like the creditor stack and are unlikely to get money because all the money goes to people who had loans out to FTX or our lawyers working on the Chapter 11 case. So that's what I'm cheering for. I think there's a place for another exchange out there. It's sort of like the Ledger news yesterday with the institutional trading firm that they're trying to boot up. There's a vacuum right now. After FTX left, a lot of liquidity left the market. A lot of people didn't know where to trade. Coinbase is under siege. Binance is under siege. I think it's prime time for another person to step up and build an exchange that a lot of people can use. Did I repeat anyone's talking points? How was that?
That was highly value additive.
Supported our
Coming
points.
in blind. That was nice.
Yeah.
That was really good. It's professional.
Thank you.
Will say that. I wonder how regulators are going to use the narrative. I know there will be probably no validity to saying something like, FTX failed customers. There was like massive wrongdoing behind the scenes, and here we are. FTX is back again. I can see regulators saying that. I can see them using this narrative to push regulation that maybe is not favorable to the industry. Not saying it has any validity to it, but I can see that happening. Separately, customers have until the end of September to submit bankruptcy claims. So I just wanted to get that in there. If you were a customer of FTX, you should be receiving a link to submit your bankruptcy claim, and you have until the end of September to do that. That is my public service announcement to the people.